Quote, Love, unquote, by New Amsterdam. Chapter 26. It's not blood that's flowing through his veins, but electricity. Every one of his senses is heightened, but he feels far away from his own body. His fingertips throb from where he'd strummed guitar strings, his ears ringing as the crowd cheers. Sweat beads down his brow, and his throat throbs because just seconds ago, he was singing his heart out. Crimson Chevalier has already left the stage. The four of them step up to the edge of the stage. Kirishima links hands with Kaminari and Ashido, and Jiro joins at Ashido's other side. "We're Riot," Kirishima says. "Good night, and thank you, everybody." Riot takes a bow as a unit, one organism, showing one beating heart. The stage lights go black, and the crowd roars as they leave the stage. Backstage, he can't seem to catch his breath. The noise of the crowd doesn't let up in the slightest, crashing over him in wave upon wave. They're stomping their feet and clapping their hands, whistling and yelling. They're calling for Riot, for Ashido, for Kaminari and Jiro, for Kirishima. Kyoko-san leans against the wall, arms crossed over his chest as he grins wryly. "Take it from an old man," he says. "When you get an audience that worked up, you owe them an encore." Kirishima blinks, turns to the other members of the band. They've been playing the opening act for so long, and before that they were playing at clubs and other small gigs. They've never done an encore after a show like this before. Shit, do they even have any songs left to play? "I know you've got something," Ashido says. She calls out to one of the stage managers, who quickly procures Kirishima's acoustic guitar. When he sees it, he knows exactly what Ashido is thinking. As if sensing his objection, Jiro leans forward and jabs him in the chest with one finger. "Riot's had our moment, a million times over tonight. Now you go out there and have yours." "We'll back you up, of course," Kaminari says, as though it's a given. Kirishima inhales deeply, eyes filling with grateful tears as he looks at the three of them. It's a given. They're always going to be right beside him. He pulls the guitar strap over his head, adjusting the instrument in his hands. "Let's go." A single clear spotlight shines down on him. Kirishima sits on a high stool, guitar balanced on one knee. He's shed his bright red blazer, left in a black button-down with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows. He strums the guitar once, twice. He looks out at the crowd, but their faces all blur into a mess of indistinct shapes and colors. He closes his eyes and imagines the one face he's been looking for. He clears his throat and leans towards the mic. "It's not a secret how I feel about you, but I think I've always been better at putting things into a song instead of just saying them." The crowd intakes a breath all at once. In that moment, Kirishima is suspended in silence. He opens his eyes and swears he sees Bakugou in the VIP box, leaning forward against the railing. "It always had to be you." It feels like a whisper, but thanks to the microphone, his words carry across the crowd, straight to the person he intends them for. He begins to play. It's finally over. The four of them arrive backstage to a crowd. Kyoko-san and Yamada-san, Amajiki-san and the rest of Sanida, Nejire-chan and Fat Gum. Their musical idols quiet as the four members of Riot approach. Then, all at once, They raise their hands and offer Riot a resounding round of applause. Ashido is teary-eyed as she pulls Kirishima into a crushing hug. "I think I'd be happy if this was the last performance of my life," she says. "It just felt perfect." Kaminari wraps his arms around both of them. "Don't say that," he scoffs. "We got a lot more to give, right?" Jiro, who's usually the one who has to be forced into group hugs, ducks down beneath their tangled arms and re-emerges in the middle of their embrace. She's smiling openly, her cheeks pink, her dark eyes glistening. "Fuck yeah," she says. "We've got to do that every night for the rest of our lives." They spin in a circle together, laughing and laughing, even though their feet are throbbing and their throats ache. "Maybe every other night," Kirishima suggests. They laugh again, and would fall over if Amajiki-san didn't rush forward to push them upright. When they finally pull away from each other, Kirishima goes to each of their guests in turn, thanking them profusely. It had been his own arrogance that had him rushing to put this event together, to even dare to ask these people to perform on the same stage as him. He doesn't regret it. He still admires every one of these artists more than he can probably say. But he doesn't want to spend the rest of his life admiring them from afar. He wants to be their peer, an artist alongside them. Tonight, he'd gotten to that point, and nothing has ever felt so good. Every one of his cells is supercharged. They're all singing out in their happiness, drowning in adrenaline and endorphins. If he kissed someone right now, would they taste his happiness? Would it be infectious? A startling energy shared between them. There's only one person he wants to kiss. But Kirishima wants him so badly. He has enough desire for 1,000 people. "Hey!" one of the stage managers calls out, flustered. "Do you have a pass? You can't just rush back here." "Do you know who the fuck I am?" An arrogant voice rings through the corridor, and Kirishima's heart stops. Bakugou Katsuki steps into view, eyes narrowed dangerously as he scans the crowd. When his gaze finally lands on Kirishima, he huffs out an irritated breath. "You've got some nerve," he growls. Kirishima has imagined this moment 1,000 times, every second that he'd agonized over sending Bakugou a ticket for tonight. He knew he wanted Bakugou here, no matter what the risks or the costs. But he also knows it can't be simple. Bakugou's not just going to look at him and forgive everything. How can he? Kirishima had doubted the very core of his feelings. Kirishima had doubted himself. And it's the latter that Bakugou found most insulting. He knows it won't be easy to fix things, but he's buoyed by his success, his exhilaration, his joy. He crosses the room, arms spread wide. Bakugou stares at him, challenge lurking in his deep red eyes. Kirishima grabs him by the shoulders, tugging him close. Bakugou opens his mouth to protest, but before he can, Kirishima presses their lips together. The next moment feels like diving deep underwater. Everything he feels rushing up to greet him and blocking out all sight and sound from the outside world. Instead, all he's aware of is Bakugou in his arms. Bakugou grabbing at the back of his shirt. Bakugou kissing him back. He could write 1,000 songs about this moment. There's no single thing he can say to do it justice, other than this must be the greatest kiss in history. Nothing is ever going to come close to it, except maybe the next time he kisses Bakugou. He's got so many plans to kiss Bakugou, because it's the only thing he ever wants to do again. Unfortunately, He still has to breathe. He pulls away, gasping, eyes fixed on the redness of Bakugou's lips. He forces himself to look up, to take in Bakugou's expression. Kirishima frowns, confused. "Are you mad?" he asks, voice coming out in a squeak. "Take a guess," Bakugou says, voice low and rough and dangerous. "Why are you mad at me?" Kirishima tries. All things considered, he thinks he can be forgiven a lot of things. Or at least, that Bakugou should put his anger aside and not ruin this moment. Bakugou's hands curl at his sides, clenching into fists. He shuts his eyes, face scrunching up painfully. He looks back at Kirishima and lets out a frustrated growl. "I can't write you a fucking song," he yells. "All I can do is tell you I love you, and you never even listen, you asshole. And then you just get up on stage and play that? And how am I ever supposed to top that? You wrote me a goddamn song!" Kirishima can't help it. He laughs. It bubbles out of him like he's just drunk a glass of champagne too quickly. He reaches out and grabs Bakugou's hands, pressing a line of kisses across his knuckles. "I didn't know how else to say I love you too," Kirishima says, voice barely a whisper. The words couldn't be more true, but they're so hard to say when he doesn't think he's worthy of them. It was easier to sing with Crimson Chevalier, to sing in front of thousands of people, than to look Bakugou in the eye and tell him the whole truth. But Bakugou deserves that, and more. So Kirishima takes a deep breath and looks him in the eye. "Besides," he continues, as casually as he can, "they're all for you." Bakugou trembles. He rips his hands out of Kirishima's grip, beating his fists against Kirishima's chest. "Asshole," he hisses, but his voice is thick. Kirishima can see the tears gathered on his lashes, just about to fall. Kirishima pulls Bakugou against his chest, holding on to him for dear life. Bakugou melts against him, even as he continues muttering curses under his breath. "I'm sorry it took me so long," Kirishima says, resting his chin against the top of Bakugou's head. "I'm kind of a slow learner, but I got there in the end." Bakugou's hands find Kirishima's hips, squeezing tightly. "You're the biggest idiot I've ever met. I fucking love you so much I can't even stand it." "I love you too," Kirishima says, again. "Finally!" The voice behind him startles Kirishima, and Bakugou stiffens in his arms. They both straighten up, turning to look at the small crowd that's been watching them all the while. Ashido and Kaminari and Jiro, Nejire and Amajiki, Fat Gum and the rest of Sunida, Present Mike and Crimson Chevalier. "You owe me 5,000 yen, Ashido says, elbowing Kaminari on the side. "You bet against us, dunce face?" Bakugou hisses. Kaminari is outraged. "As if! I thought Kirishima would break down and try to get you back weeks ago." Still, Bakugou rounds on him, and Kirishima is too stunned to move. A hand comes to rest on his shoulder, strong and comforting. He glances up at Kyoko-san's twinkling eyes and half smile. "So, that's the boyfriend." They hadn't gotten to discussing the details, but Kirishima nods all the same. "Yeah," he breathes out, in a wistful sigh. "Isn't he great?" Bakugou, red-faced, currently has Kaminari in a headlock, while Kaminari screams for mercy. Jiro is taking pictures on her phone, and Ashido is still demanding her money. Kyoko-san chuckles. I think you kids will be alright. They hadn't planned on an after-party, and the show ended so late into the night that in an hour or so, the sun will be rising. Despite this, when the car drops Riot back at their apartment, there's a small caravan behind them. Kirishima gets out of the car, stretches his arms over his head, and tries to get his thoughts in order. He's keyed up, but exhausted, suspended in some strange state between being awake and being asleep. Is he dreaming? Everything about tonight feels like a dream. Someone nudges him forward, and within a few moments, he's sitting on a couch in the living room. People keep piling into the apartment, grabbing drinks from the fridge and sitting on the carpeted floor when the seats fill up. Jiro and Yayozuru are sharing one of the armchairs, and Kaminari is squeezed in next to Kirishima, closer and closer, as others pile onto the other end of the couch. Ashido is perched on the kitchen counter, with Sero standing beside her, one hand resting on her knee. Sitting in a line on the floor, yawning and laughing in turns, are Midoriya, Ida, and Uraka. Todoroki and Shinso are on a couch, both looking like they're not quite sure how they ended up here, or how to join in on the conversation. Hagakure and Ujiro are on the floor, near Jiro and Yayozuru. Thankfully, the more experienced musicians have gone off to their own places to get some rest. Kirishima doesn't know what he would do if Crimson Chevalier suddenly appeared in his kitchen. Bakugou walks in once everyone is already seated. Kirishima's brow furrows. Where had he been until now? Kirishima had thought he'd been in the same car as Sero and Shinso. Was he pacing outside, wondering whether he was welcome to come inside, or is Kirishima the only one who's tortured by that sort of insecurity? Hey! Ashido kicks him lightly with one foot, still covered in sheer black tights. Where have you been, mister? Bakugou bats her away, grimacing. Ordering pizzas, he mutters. What? You thought you'd be able to keep this crowd up the entire night and not fucking feed them? Idiots. As soon as Bakugou says it, Kirishima realizes he's famished. He could eat an entire one of those pizzas on his own. But Bakugou had also taken the initiative to provide for their friends, who'd come to Kirishima's place. Forget what Kirishima had thought earlier. Bakugou feels no insecurity. He's treating Kirishima's home as if it's his own. Half drunk on exhaustion and happiness, Kirishima stumbles to his feet and crosses the floor to grab both of Bakugou's hands in his. Babe, he says, smiling to show off all his teeth. You're so good at this. I want to marry you right now. A furious red blush crawls up Bakugou's neck and across his cheeks. Can you not be a moron for once in your goddamn life? He says, pulling away half-heartedly. Oh, next time, let's get Kachan to cook for us, Midoriya says, from where he's sitting on the floor. He's really good at it. Remember when he used to bring food to the set of UA? Uraka and Todoroki nod their agreement. Shut up, Deku, I'll kill you, Bakugou says, so quickly that all the words run together. It's an automatic response, with no actual feeling behind the words. You've never cooked for me, Kirishima pouts. But he's also intrigued. How many more things does he have left to learn about Bakugou? He wants to take his time, discover them each one by one. Bakugou elbows Kirishima in the stomach, and when Kirishima lurches forward in pain, Bakugou whispers darkly into his ears. You ever fucking try and break up with me again, and I never will. The empty pizza boxes are balanced precariously on the table. Most of them are probably not going to make it until sunrise, Eyes heavy and voices hoarse, they nevertheless persevere to keep the party going as long as they can. Ashido's still sitting on the counter, swinging her legs back and forth. She clears her throat, gets absolutely no one's attention, and then propels herself forward so that she lands on her feet. Hey! Her voice is sharp enough to cut through all the other conversations, and immediately all eyes are on her. In a space full of strong personalities and star power, Ashido can still command the room. She rests her hand on her hip, raises the other in the air. I have something to say! Just spit it out, raccoon eyes, Bakugou grouses at her. Stop being so dramatic. Ashido's eyes twinkle as she sticks out her tongue at him. I'm not taking that from you, Mr. I'm gonna kiss Kirishima in front of everyone. Bakugou barely blinks, no shame to speak of in his expression. Shitty nickname, try harder. Oh. Ashido huffs out, waving a hand at him dismissively. Anyway, I just want to let everyone know, so no one gets the wrong idea, but we're dating again. Sero cuts in, blurting the words out like they're tripping over themselves to make it out of his mouth. Ashido asked me if I wanted to try again, and I really do, so we are trying and dating. Ashido purses her lips, trying to stifle her laughter. She reaches up on her toes to pinch Sero's cheek, looking at him adoringly. I don't think any of you are going to run and tell the press, and anyway, we're probably not the same headline material as Kirishima and Bakugou, but we're taking things slow. And we just thought, as our friends, you should know. The room is quiet for a moment, although from his spot near Kirishima, Bakugou just mutters, fucking dramatic. The others are quick to congratulate Ashido and Sero, or tease them. Kirishima, however, gets up from the couch and jabs a finger on both of them. Take care of each other, okay? He means his words to come out stern, looking out for his friends, even if that means trying to intimidate both of them. But instead, his words come out like a question, almost a plea. Ashido leans close to Sero, rests her head against his shoulder. We're gonna try. Sero wraps an arm around Ashido's waist, breathes deeply. We figured it's better that you all know, so if we get too wrapped up in ourselves, you can remind us of what's important. Kirishima smiles at that. After all, it's his duty to return the favor, if he needs to. Wait a minute, Kaminari says, looking around the room and doing some frantic calculations on his fingers. Ashido, you and Sero are back together, and Jiro and Yaomomo are going strong, and Kirishima and Bakugou are making out in front of everyone, and everything. No, this can't be. What? Jiro asks, tilting her head to one side. I'm the only one that came out of this whole thing without even a date. Kaminari drags a hand down his face, expression stricken and desolate. This doesn't even make sense. I'm as bi as Ashido. My dating pool should be bigger than anyone's. How does no one want to date me? Maybe because you're dumber than a bag of rocks, Bakugou suggests snidely. That can't be it, Kaminari wails. Ashido and Kirishima are just as dumb as I am. It's true, Jiro says, in an aside to Yayozuru. My life is very difficult. On the couch, Shinso tuts and crosses his arms over his chest. You want it too much, he says, in his deep, even voice. I've been robbed, Kaminari is saying, barely hearing him. I put so much effort into your guys' lives, now you have to help me. Set me up with the hottest, nicest people you know, as soon as possible. During the commotion, Kirishima grabs Bakugou's hand and pulls him out of the living room and into his bedroom. The blinds are open, the purple-pink light of the moment before sunrise lighting the room. Kirishima sits at the head of the bed, and Bakugou at the foot, each of them turned towards the other. It can wait, Bakugou says. You're dead on your fucking feet. Kirishima does feel like he could either pass out immediately or stay awake for the next 3 days. But he shakes his head, gives Bakugou a reassuring smile. It can, he agrees. But I'd rather we do this now. Bakugou inhales sharply, eyes squeezing shut for a moment like he's bracing for a blow. I've known how I feel about you for a long time, Kirishima says. He doesn't know if he can say what Bakugou wants to hear. All he can offer is the truth. But I think it was hard to accept, because I didn't think I was worthy of you. It was okay for me to love you, but if you loved me back, that just didn't make any sense. A muscle in Bakugou's neck strains as he clenches his teeth. But he doesn't interrupt. I still think you're amazing, Kirishima continues. He looks up and smiles, just because Bakugou is here, close to him, after so long. I think you're the coolest person ever, and the smartest, and the most intense, and the most emotional, and definitely the hottest. Who the fuck is emotional shit for brains? But I want to see in me what everyone else sees, too. I want to see in me what you see, and I think over the past few weeks, or maybe even over the past year, and definitely today, I started to feel it. I think maybe I'm not just someone who wants to love you. I'm also someone who wants your love, in return. There's a difference, after all, between the love and admiration they get from their fans, and the relationships they can have with one another. There's nothing cheap or insincere about a fan's love, but it asks nothing in return. A relationship is at once stronger and more vulnerable, giving and taking in equal measures. And that's all I wanted to say, Kirishima says, smiling nervously. I understand if I took too long, or I've hurt you too badly. I'm willing to take responsibility for that. But I just want you to know, Bakugou Katsuki, that I really love you. And if you want to try again, want us to be boyfriends again, I'm ready. When he's done speaking, Kirishima closes his eyes and holds his breath. He's been thinking about what to say to Bakugou for so long, but he's never dared imagine what Bakugou might say back. Then the breath he's holding in is forced out of his lungs as Bakugou wraps his arms around Kirishima's chest, squeezing him so tightly that he can't draw in air. Idiot, Bakugou says, mouthing the words just under Kirishima's ear, his voice husky. You already gave me a damn song. You stood up on that stage and you goddamn floored me. I don't care about that shit you pulled anymore. As long as you've gotten over that I was an asshole too. Fuck. If I have to go another day without you, I'm gonna lose it. Kirishima returns Bakugou's embrace, holding onto him just as tightly. He smiles, presses his nose into Bakugou's hair. So don't. Let's be together, as much as we want. Not for anyone else's sake, just you and me. I'm gonna hold you to that, Bakugou grumbles. You ever walk out on me again and I'll kick your ass. Kirishima hiccups, and then laughs. I won't run away, he promises. When they pull apart, Kirishima's ribs are aching with how tightly they held on to one another. They shift on the bed, sitting side by side to look out the window. The sky has gone from deep mauve to orange gold. The first rays of sun are bursting from the horizon, and in that moment anything seems possible. Kirishima is, after all, sitting with his boyfriend in bed, greeting a new day. The same boyfriend who's still his favorite actor, who takes Kirishima's breath away with everything he does. The same boyfriend who gives Kirishima a reason to push himself harder, to go as far as he can. Because he wants to steal Bakugou's breath away the same way Bakugou steals his. He wants to give as much love as he receives, for as long as he possibly can. They curl up together in bed, on top of the covers and utterly exhausted. I love you, Bakugou murmurs sleepily. Kirishima presses a kiss to the tip of Bakugou's nose, and then the two of them proceed to sleep away the entirety of the day, wrapped up in each other. Several weeks later, Kirishima kneels on the ground as he seals up the last of his boxes. Records, clothes, workout gear, and songbooks have all been packed away. The posters have been stripped from his walls, rolled up to be transported. He hasn't quite decided whether he's going to put the UA poster back up in his new place. It might be a bit awkward, and also a bit redundant, given who he's moving in with. He sighs, sitting back on his heels. They were going to outgrow this apartment sooner or later. He doesn't regret that, but he's sad to leave it. Places where memories are made are more than just places. They're feelings, sensations that can't be easily defined. This apartment has been his home and family and excitement and despair and comfort. But now it's time to move on. Kirishima hums as he gets to his feet, a melody he's been toying with for a few days. Riot has spent the majority of the past few weeks in the studio, perfecting their second album before its upcoming release. He and Aishido have co-credits on the album for vocals, but the songs themselves are listed as music and lyrics by Riot. They've all come together to make this album. It belongs to all of them. Outside his window, the billboards have changed yet again. The ad for Make My Story is long gone, replaced by a picture of Usagi Amurumi, punching out in a straight line, advertising her next MMA match. Kirishima chuckles. He knows Bakugou wants to go to that. He should look into getting tickets. He's gonna miss waking up in the morning, looking out his window and seeing Bakugou in all his posed and styled perfection staring back at him. Oi, Kirishima, a voice growls from the doorway. Stop screwing around. Let's get going. The real Bakugou is leaning against the doorframe, dressed in a green army surplus jacket and black jeans. He looks unimpressed as he sees the boxes still scattered on Kirishima's floor. Can't do anything yourself, can you? Bakugou grumbles, leaning down to pile two boxes on top of each other and hoist them into his arms. Come on, I want to get this done before it gets dark. Kirishima looks up at him and grins. He gets up, presses a kiss against Bakugou's cheek, and then gathers up the last of his things. For a while now, home has been with him. The line leading up to Towers Records' top floor has been capped since 8 a.m. Kirishima sits at a long table with Aishido, Jiro, and Kaminari as fan after fan come down the line, clutching a shiny new album with a red cover. A jagged black line cuts across the solid color like a fault line. In one corner, small block letters read, Riot, red. Their second album is projected to make the top 5 in the first week of its release. Even Kirishima, whose first instinct is to second-guess himself, knows that it's nothing to scoff at. Hell, Kirishima is proud. Also, there's something about spending 4 or 5 hours signing autographs that makes you believe your own hype. He's working on muscle memory, signing his name in metallic red ink, then looking up at the fan to smile and have a quick conversation with them. Then he passes the CD down to Kaminari beside him, and then goes on to the next. When the next CD gets passed to him, he hears the impatient rhythm of someone tapping their foot. Looking up, he sees an angry blonde with his arms crossed over his chest, wearing a well-worn Riot hoodie. Kirishima blinks, looking from his boyfriend to the album and back again. Hey, what are you doing here? Bakugou scoffs at him. Been wanting to do this for a long time, he says, his voice rough, like he's mad at himself, even as he admits to this. Look, I've been following your music since before you joined this band. It means a lot to me, I'm a fan. For some reason, the simplicity of those last words hits Kirishima the hardest. feels painfully sincere. He looks up at Bakugou, and his lips pull into a fun smile. Yeah? Thanks a lot. He gives Bakugou an up and down look, then his lips curl into a smirk. I'm a fan of your face. Bakugou's cheeks flush, but he places his hands down on the table and looks Kirishima straight in the eye. Oh yeah? What are you doing later? Beside them, Kaminari clears his throat. Come on, guys, you're holding up the line! Not only that, but everyone behind Bakugou has their cell phones out, snapping pictures. Well, it's been a while since Kirishima and Bakugou have been featured in the tabloids together. You should move along, Kirishima says, handing back the CD. But I'll see you later. Bakugou clutches the CD in his hands, then glances down at what Kirishima has written beside his signature. It's always been you. It's always gonna be you.